morning. I'm here this morning with Jeff Jenkins. He is the owner of NotOnlySwag.com. And Jeff has over 35 years of experience in the premium and awards industry. Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good to see you again.
As I understand it, the premium and awards industry has different aspects to it, different levels. Could you explain to us a little bit about the nuances of that industry?
Sure, Eric. The industry has existed for many years, but one major component of that industry is service award recognition and sales award recognition and client recognition, or gifts, if you will. There are many components thereof, and I'd be happy to delve into some of that for you today.
It's great. So we'll dig into it, but I kind of want to set the stage a little bit. So one of the things that's so important to manufacturers right now, it's the ability to retain employees. So as the workforce is aging, it's more challenging, less people are getting involved in the industry. So being able to retain current employees is critical. And absolutely. And there's a role that you and your industry can play. And we're going to touch on some of the things related to that. So we're going to initially start about employee recognition and the different levels of that within an organization. And then we're going to segue into the role of a salesperson. So if I were a salesperson at a manufacturing company, I may bring on a new client, or I may have existing clients that are very valuable to the organization. And just like losing a current employee can be challenging for a manufacturer, losing a client, particularly if they're a large part of a manufacturer's business, it can have a serious impact on the bottom line.
Okay.
So I'm going to be anxious to hear about your background, as it relates to those topics. So let's go ahead and get started. Tell me a little bit about your background, and then once you do that, we'll start talking about employee recognition.
Great. Well, I spent 30 to 35 years basically in the service award and premium and incentive recognition programs business. I represented a company for 30 years specializing in service awards, along with, supplying promotional items, gifts and incentives to our clients, which are mostly corporate clients and hospitals, where people have employees that just needed a formalized recognition program. And they also have clients that needed to be thanked for their business. We tend as humans to not thank people enough in our day-to-day lives, much less in industry. And a genuine thank you goes a very long way. So I spent a lot of years, originally with my father and then on my own, representing a company he helped found many years ago, to design programs that helped corporations recognize their individual employees in a program-based setting that we supplied for them.
Let's go ahead and dig into some of the details. So it's important intuitively that companies, manufacturers recognize their employees.
Yes, definitely.
Why is that important?
Well, there's a human need for recognition. No one can change that. If you're not feeling recognized or appreciated, you tend to reject that environment to a certain degree. The biggest issue with that is how, if people feel unrecognized enough, they may just leave an organization. And the cost of turnover, the cost of finding new workers to replace these experienced people that have created not only their ability to do their jobs well, but to train them, to drug test them, all the things that are involved with that cost is absolutely enormous. And I think it's a shame to have manufacturers not consider what their true cost is of not recognizing people appropriately and adequately, when it can be very simple in how you do it if you have best practices and know and understand the importance of that. And that's what we try to teach. And one of the ways we could do that is supply this type of interview so that the word gets out to the right people, because the cost of turnover today is enormous.
And I'm glad you touched on cost. As a manufacturing CEO, there's a lot of, it's part of the job to be thinking about ROI. What's the ROI if we do this or that?
Right.
I was very interested to hear from you about the way that incentives can be tax deductible. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, because that's kind of unique.
Sure. In 1986, the tax law was enacted by Congress that enables corporations and even nonprofit organizations to deduct from their taxes the cost of certain parameters within employee recognition, sales incentives, safety awards. And in following those guidelines, which are simple, but they're detailed enough that you need to follow them, the cost of the award programs is tax deductible to that corporation or nonprofit organization.
That's great. That's a good piece of information. Let's talk about the timing of giving awards, timing and presentation. What are some of the best practices around those topics?
The best practices for giving awards is making sure they're done in a professional way. They're done with true meaning and not handed to someone, just hand it and just walk away and just say thank you. That's it. It should be built around a ceremony. It should be on the job in front of their peers whenever possible. It should involve the best practices should involve people that need to be at that ceremony to make it as the most effective it can be, such as the recipient, obviously. Their immediate supervisor should be there. Their work family should be there. Their actual family, if they can. And some people think that the CEO or the chairman or the president of the company needs to be there. They do not need to be there. It's nice if they can, and if it makes a comfortable environment, fine. Some people are intimidated by senior management coming to their department to say thank you, when their immediate supervisor, the person that they work with every day, is the one who they report to and would feel best if they were recognized by that person. It's proven that this is the most effective way to do it. And with proper planning and proper making the steps of this recognition be heartfelt and be somewhat to very different than their day-to-day work environment, that is extremely important. And we have years of experience on facilitating those type of meetings and the planning thereof.
Do you think it's better to present an award during like a weekly staff meeting, or to schedule, a separate time so that it's kind of more of an event?
It's definitely better to make it more of an event. However, there are some corporations that are large enough that it's just not possible to stop a whole department to make a separate, even in a separate room or facility, to do that on a regular basis. It's just a matter of logistics and the size of the company. But the most effective way is to make it somewhat different than your day-to-day elements that you do in your business, but to make it special enough that it stands out, because it's a memorable moment when it's done well. And honestly, if it's done right, it's a moment they will never forget. They won't forget the people in the meeting. They won't forget the smiles and the intention thereof, or the storytelling that they told about your achievements and how you've contributed to the company. It's one of the most important things you can do in anyone's career, honestly.
So you mentioned, we're talking about their achievements. So what other things in the presentation itself of the award are important that the person giving the award needs to get across?
It's very important to tie their achievements, their contributions to the founding of the company or the continual growth of the company, and to point out that they are an important cog. No matter what their job level is, that they are part of the team, they are treated like part of the team, and they're important to that team. They don't have to use the word team necessarily, but at that team and family aspect, if that comes through in the ceremony, is probably the glue for a good ceremony and a good presentation. The award itself is almost secondary, honestly. If it's done right, it's not about the award. Now, it's great to have a choice of an award that someone can choose so that they take ownership, if you will, of that gift rather than some magic item that everybody's supposed to like. And that way, if they are taking ownership of it, they'll appreciate it more. But believe me, the lasting value is not just a nice award. The lasting value is the ceremony and how it made them feel.
What are your thoughts on taking photos during that event? What are ways to kind of take that moment and maximize that?
Every way possible. You should have someone in charge of taking photos. You should have someone in charge of decorating the room, if possible. Sometimes that's not possible. It's fine. Everybody's different. It can be on the factory floor, but it should be over in an area where no one's going to get hurt, obviously. And it's referred to as on the job, off the job. So whenever you can, make it special, however you can, and publicize what it was and get a little press out of it for your company and really for not so much the company, but for other employees to see this is what we do here. This is how we treat our employees and how we appreciate them. That goes a long, long way, especially in the days now that we have social media and whatnot. Very, very important.
It may even be nice if you have a good picture at the ceremony of the person getting the award, shaking the hand of their manager. You could print that out, and that would be a nice little thing they could put up next to their machine. Perhaps, maybe they don't put the award up or whatever, but that picture, just a way to kind of capture the moment.
Yeah. I've also, when giving awards for service, ideally, if you can present to them on their anniversary day or even anniversary week is always better. I had several hospital accounts years ago that would give the person on their actual anniversary day a bouquet of flowers and then tell them, thank them, shake their hand, take pictures, but tell them that at the end of the month, at recognition day for that month, that they're invited to that ceremony. And then they'd gather all the people. Because it was a large hospital, they'd gather all the people that are having their service award anniversary that month and do it in a separate room, maybe the cafeteria or what have you. And that seemed to work really well and was still personal because of the flower delivery on the day of the anniversary.
There are other events that you can think of that would be good for recognition that people may not think of. So people typically think of like a work anniversary, someone's worked 5-10 years. You touched upon safety. That could be, someone perhaps, if it's at an individual level, a certain number of years. Any other types of things that could be recognized that you can think of?
Oh, sure. For safety, it can be a safe month. It can be a safe quarter. It can be months or quarters in a row. It can be low, what's the word I want? Low cost involved from accidents. When there's low number of accidents, obviously there's less cost, and that can be related to the value of how much you give toward the whole program because it's built in. If you save the company a lot of money due to low accidents, they can afford to award you a bit more, and it doesn't really cost them much at all. Not to mention portions of it can be tax deductible if it's done within the government guidelines, which are fairly easy to do. So as far as other recognition, anything that helps with your turnover is very important. Onboarding awards, 90-day, meet your probation award. They can do 1 year and 3 year, although the tax law is specifically written that a qualified program needs to start at 5 years of recognition. In this day and age, when people are changing companies and jobs regularly, much more than earlier days, a 1 in 3 year award is really important, in my personal opinion, even though it's not technically tax deductible, but I'll leave that up to the accounting department.
Is there a difference, or how do you accommodate the fact that you may have older employees versus younger employees that may have different things that they're interested in? you may have a vegetarian versus a meat eater. Giving
Right.
the vegetarian a Omaha steaks, for example, probably wouldn't be the best idea. How do you
Right.
handle that?
Well, another thing is, you don't give a service award that has alcohol. That's another way of saying what you just said. That's the beauty and why the number one preferred form of recognition for service awards is choice programs, where the employee has a choice of the gift that they most want to have that is indicative of what they want to either share with their family, put on their desk, or display at work somehow. It's absolutely vital to have a choice. And a lot of the companies I came from or that are in the industry, they offer that.
And you mentioned cost earlier. So, what is, of course, is going to be different for every company and the type of recognition. But just to kind of put a framework together, what's a typical cost for a single recognition award? What's kind of the average? What should people be thinking about?
Well, again, we go back to the guidelines from the 1986 tax law. There's certain minimums that have to be met. If it's not a service award, if it's not part of a structured program, there's still a certain amount you're only allowed to give in certain industries, especially. But as far as service awards, the average spent by corporate America today is $50 to $150 for every 5 years of service. And if you break that down per year, that's the cost of a fairly inexpensive lunch per year. That's all it is. And then when you get the tax deduction on top of it, honestly, it's one of the best pieces of money you can spend because of what it does, not only for the employee and their attitude about the company, but what it does for the environment and the corporate attitude that you're building, basically the culture of that company. I think it's absolutely vital that it's done well and it's done right. I can show you examples of people that spend less than I just stated and a lot more than what I stated, but the average is 50 to 150 for every 5 years of service.
Sounds like it's important to have guidelines in place so that everyone's treated fairly.
Exactly.
Standpoint of that you don't give someone does something, you give them an award, someone else does the same thing, and you don't reward them for whatever reason because it's not outlined. Do you have any thoughts about?
The worst thing you can do is when you're setting up a program, if you've never had one before, the worst thing you can do is to not go back and reward anyone else that would have earned that certain type of award. Let's say a 7-year employee doesn't get a 5-year recognition when you start a new program. I was vehemently against having my clients do something like that because there's no recourse. And the negativity that could be caused by that is so enormous, and you can't measure it or bottle it up once it's out there. So you have to do retroactive awards when you start a new program and go back and just retroactively at least recognize them for one of their levels. You don't have to do all of them, but they have to be recognized. Otherwise, please don't spend the money and ruin the whole thing.
So before we segue over to sales incentives for a manufacturer sales team or manufacturers to recognize clients, is there anything else you wanted to add on the employee recognition side?
Just how important it is to have the right people there to make it special, to make them feel that this is something you regularly do and you do it well. Be prepared, plan it ahead of time, make it look like you planned it ahead of time, and not treat it like a one-off. Here you go, here's your award. Make it special. The rippling effect, if it's done well, is really important and will be remembered for a long, long time. But the negative effect of not doing it right can be way worse. And we're not talking about money. We're talking about the effort that goes behind it. If the money's there and it's an award that is not going to offend someone because it's so cheap, we're just going on the assumption that they spend the average in this case. But if it's done well, that's what they'll remember more than even the gift they got. So that's what we recommend.
I actually thought of another question, and this will relate to the sales side as well. So,
Sure.
what are your thoughts on a, a monetary gift over a physical gift of some kind?
Monetary gift is the worst thing you can do, and here's why. As soon as you apply a dollar figure to an award, someone is going to go, is that all I'm worth? Even if it's a substantial amount of money, which because of the guidelines, you really can't give something that's disguised as a bonus disguised as a service award. That's the whole point of the tax law, the way it was written. It cannot be cash to qualify in a program. It cannot be in lieu of cash, like a Visa gift card, let's say. And you don't want to do it. Like I said, if you can apply a number to it, automatically somebody's going to go, wait, is that what they think of me? That's why the choice program is very important, because they lean towards something they would want to have that in their mind has more value because they want it, instead of where they get this thing and they go, really? This? You don't want that reaction. So it's really important to follow the guidelines. They're written for a reason, and you get the most bang for your buck when it's something they can't necessarily put a dollar figure on in their head, but it's because it was presented well and it has value to them. Maybe they really wanted a piece of fine art and that was one of your choices. They're thrilled with it because they chose it. So always stay away from anything related to cash. Oh, and the other reason, cash becomes draperies. It becomes a phone bill. It just goes away. And then what do you have left? Nothing to remind them of that great ceremony you gave and that you prepared for them. The whole point is to help them remember that. And the more they use it, wear it, and see it, the more they're reminded of those good feelings. That's why cash doesn't work for service awards. We had the account of Conrail, the railroad company, for a number of years. And they came to us at one point and they said, we have a really unique award that we want you to help us with. And I said, well, what's so unique about it? And they said, we have a 92-year-old employee that still comes to work every day. He was originally with the Pennsylvania Railroad before Conrail was formed in the 70s, and actually late 60s. And they said, he's 92 years old. He does 3 things other than sleep. He does gardening, he plays the violin, and he goes to work for Conrail. What in the world can we give him? And so we came up with a wood inlay Sorrento music box that had a violin inlaid into the top of this music box. And as you open the top, we had a full custom engraved plate signed by the president and the current chairman of Conrail at the time. And, indicative of 75 years of service. And that was the only 75 years of service award I ever did, obviously. So unique. And he was so touched because it became a very personal way of recognizing him, in saying, plus it came from the top people in the entire company. But the fact that we took the time to know that he was a violinist, it really touched the man from what I was told. So that was really fun. That was real special.
Branded product giveaways. This is not really a recognition, but things that are given away maybe in a sales process. Talk about those. What's the value? What are some things that you may recommend for that?
When you're giving something, always lean toward higher quality. You never have to make an excuse that you gave them a cheap item. If it's a better quality item, spend a little extra. It will last longer. It will be appreciated more. And what it won't do is remind the recipient, when they look at a cheap item, they'll go, wow, they're really not a great company, are they? But they'll never say that out loud. They'll think it. You do not want someone receiving something from your company that is of lower quality because you were trying to hit a dollar figure in your mind. It will imply that you are not a great company. And conversely, if you give them a nice item, and it doesn't have to be necessarily expensive, but just quality and useful, something they're going to use or wear or see on a more regular basis, they're going to automatically think of your company as a better, higher quality company. And that helps you stand out against your competitors. So the value is everything in whatever you're presenting.
Let's assume that that's before someone becomes a client. Do you have any recommendations for client onboarding?
Again, useful items. Usually people give a group of items in a nice bag because they can use it on or off the job. And wherever they go, it will remind others as well as themselves, the user, hey, that's a cool company. Look what they gave you. Oh, that's nice. Wow. I wish my company gave that. It starts a conversation. That's why you wear logos on your shirts. You walk into either a bar or just a restaurant or wherever you are, train station, somebody sees that logo, it may start a conversation and they'll say, you work for that company? Tell me about them. My brother-in-law said some good things about them. Do they do that? And before you know it, you're in a 20-minute conversation, all because you wore a quality shirt with a well-done logo on it.
Let's say you have, 10 great clients, and now you want to recognize them, kind of make sure that you're top of mind. Why do you do that? And how do you do it?
If you want to be top of mind, you might want to make it somewhat unique. Select a gift that they really like or appreciate, whether it's edible or not. Edibles are always good. Alcohol is not good unless it's a very intimate relationship where they're not going to be offended by a nice bottle of wine or whatever you're giving. But you really run into the issue of somebody might be offended and it's not good. So what we have found over the years, rather than give it as a Christmas gift or a holiday gift, so to speak, we used to give high-end chocolates to our clients as a thank you, but we would send them at Thanksgiving time. And the reason we did that and the positive feedback we got from that was just great. One, it was different. The timing was different. And we had continual clients that would actually ask us, I'd go see them in, say, August, September, whatever, and they'd say, are you doing the candies again this year? It really meant a lot to them. And so when we locked into that and gave it at Thanksgiving, they would even take it home and share it with their family, what does that say about the quality of the gift, that they're willing to take it home to their family? It just means a lot to them. So if nothing else, give it at Thanksgiving to be different. Even if your gift is not somewhat different, the timing is important. So, but as far as client gifts, give something appropriate. Don't overdo it price-wise, but do it efficiently and professionally. Make sure it's packaged well. Make sure it conveys the message you want, whether it's a custom written note or one that's pre-printed but has custom elements to it like what we did. Make sure it sends the message you want it to be sent. Whether it's from us or not, doesn't matter. It's do it right, and you'll be happy that you did, because you'll hear about it later. You'll hear about it, plus or minus, but you'll hear about it more if it's really well done. It actually reminds me, my dad was selling pharmaceuticals back in the 1950s, and he would have to go to either hospitals or doctors' offices where they had nurses, up front where they greet people and whatnot. And he, for whatever reason, in the mid 50s, he decided that his entree into those offices was packs of gum. I think back then it was Dentyne or whatever. And he became known as the gum man because he didn't go into a single office without some of that gum with him, and would give to either the nurses or the admin people. And it got him in a lot of doors for whatever reason. He just had an identity, and hey, it's a gum guy. Sure, you can go in and see Dr. So-and-so. This technique does work.
I love the gum story because we always talk about in marketing, what's your unique selling proposition? And everybody says customer service. Well, if everybody says it, that's not unique. What do you do that makes your customer service great? We return quotes within 24 hours or whatever. So we had somebody, we had all kinds of ideas. We gave them some choices. And what they said is, well, one of my passions is I volunteer for an animal shelter. So
Oh,
what we
wow.
ended up giving to her, because she brought us a really great new client, what we ended up doing was donating to the animal shelter a certain volume of pet food.
Nice.
And she was thrilled. It's kind of like giving a donation in someone's name, but a
Right.
physical thing where the pet food showed up and it was something and she was thrilled. Whereas if we gave her, a food basket, that wouldn't have had the same impact.
Not at
So,
all. You're
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Jeff, I did want to ask for recognizing your salespeople. If you're a manufacturer, you have salespeople they maybe hit a certain achievement. Are there any unique things that you should be considering, for that audience?
Yes, absolutely. One of the mistakes that people make in sales awards is they think they should only give awards to the top three people, the gold, silver, and bronze level, if you will. If you think about human nature when it comes to sales awards, your top people are always going to be your top people generally, unless somebody has an outstanding year nobody saw coming. It generally is, your top three or your top three, more or less. But to make an effective sales award program, what you should do is plan out how you can move the at least the middle or the upper middle people, or all of them, move them along in the sales cycle and award them for their achievement. If the person who's 15th in line moved to 12 or 10, that's a heck of an achievement. Just because they're not your top person doesn't mean you shouldn't inspire them too, because you're making the same profit as a company on what they sold as much as the person who's your top or second top person. So structure your sales award program such that they all have a chance to move up and be rewarded accordingly and incentivized accordingly. And so if you take a group of people and move them all forward, that may actually be close to or even more valuable than just awarding the top three because they did so well, but maybe you made more money because everyone moved up. And the beautiful part of sales awards is that the cost to reward them is built into the success of the program. So what you do is you gauge your budget based on what you think they can achieve realistically and build that in so that the award program pays for itself. Other than the human time to set it up and to present it well, like we went over earlier, but as long as the award is built in, you can afford to spend, a really nice chunk of change, if you will, on something that's really meaningful to them, whether it's a ring program, a diamond ad program, a gold watch, or a trip, or the lease of a car, or whatever. All those staged and along the way gifts, across the group of people that you're talking about. Like I said, the cost can be built in. It's very affordable, and everybody wins.
I think that's great. And that concept could apply to employees as well. So if a manufacturer is trying to improve productivity, you're always measuring productivity, looking at improvements. So I love that idea of taking someone, maybe they're not the top producer, but they've improved their production this month, this quarter by X% or a number of units.
Exactly.
That is really powerful. So thank you.
It is. And it keeps them motivated. And again, if you're recognized, you're less likely to leave that organization. It's just a win-win for everybody, and it builds your culture.
Great. Well, Jeff, thank you for joining us today, and
Sure.
appreciate it. And I will.
Glad to do it.
Yeah, very good.
Anything else I can ever help you with, Eric, you let me know.
Thank you, everybody.